So hey guys, how are you all? Welcome to. So we are back with a brand new movie on What If Naruto Had Invite Louise at Family Function movie, but before we start, be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. Now let's begin the story. A place of pure darkness, where no sound exists. It is a place of problems, greed and lust. Where deadly sins would roam endlessly as if no host attracted them. And standing in the middle of it all was an irritable young man. His clothing dirty, but complete. He wore a tangy orange jumpsuit, had a worn navy blue headband strapped across his forehead and jet black sandals that crunched against the small rocks at his feet. This man wasn't always irritable. He was once a man of values, but those values betrayed him. It cost him to degrade into the man he is today. The former shell of a hero. What kept him together, his friends, were no longer with him. They have moved on, even after everything. What happened? Why did everything change when the war was over? Why am I all alone again? I have nothing now. I have no purpose. My will? Where is my fire? Once a man with a dream to become Hokage is now washed up. He lost the election to Konohamaru. At first, it was a friendly rivalry, but politics gets dirty. It was all fun and games until someone misinterpreted something and friendships break. It was the hero versus the noble. He could still remember the chants. In the end, it slowly shifted towards the monster versus the savior. How did he turn years of hard work and acceptance from Konoha into sneered looks and loneliness? He wished he had a clue. Konohamaru also had the audacity to put him as a security guard. The man who defeated them all, saved Konoha numerous times, has been degraded into nothing but a security guard. He expected a rebellion. There had to be someone out there who found this enraging as he did, but then again. Cruel fate took its toll on him. And his former friends only gave half-assed impressions of apologies, saying they have no right to go against the Hokage. Naruto grew bitter every second just thinking about it. Awaken. Hero of the ninja realm. Naruto nearly jumped from the sound behind him. Who's there? This isn't your typical security guard. I'll kill you if you don't come out. Naruto didn't mean to boast, but he was seriously concerned for whoever was behind this. Even if his title as hero diminished in front of him, he still has the skill and finesse as a hero. I'm not kidding. Get out here, kid. He searched the area, peeking through the shadows, but there was no sign of human existence besides himself. Is this some kind of genjutsu? Naruto thought until the voice speaks once more. It was weird and out of place. He had never heard this kind of language spoken and it took him by surprise. Prohodite. Evisivau teba. The voice rang through his ear, the pitch heightening by every passing moment until he found himself on the ground. He quickly clenched his throbbing forehead, but it didn't matter. The pain wasn't going away. It was then a small whirlwind within the alley revealed itself to the broken-down Naruto. He tried to escape its wrath, but that was futile as well. He was frozen solid, and the only thing keeping him conscious was the sharp pain stabbing his brain. His vision became hazy and his body was swept from the ground. Am I going to die? I can't die here. I still have so much I have to do. In a vast, open field, in an alternate time zone, where a group of students ran amok, with their purple cloaks and well above average clothing, swung in the air, almost freely. They waved their magic wands, and through magic, these ordinary young children were able to do extraordinary things. Ah, did you get a salamander? All I have is some toad. A student lifted up the poor-looking thing, but little does she know, familiars are beings that connect with you the most, some, more ferocious than their counterpart but still unique in its own way. Everyone was having a joyous moment, first-time meetings with their familiars displayed everywhere, well, except for one particular girl. She kept herself from the center of attention nicely, but no matter, students still kept tabs on her, patiently waiting for the time her name is called up. Her name is Louise Françoise Leblanc de la Vallière, or known to her peers as Louise the Zero. Louise, born from the noble family, Vallière, one with very high standards and close ties to the royal family itself, were met with unfortunate events when it was discovered that the youngest daughter, Louise, was unable to possess the same magical prowess as her two sisters. This, however, never stopped her from trying, and as if proving it, she gives herself some comforting words. I can't give up yet, I'll show them. She kept close to herself, standing alone in the shadows of a great tree. Perhaps she'll even be blessed and summon a golem. The mere thought of bringing home a golem to show her father and sister brought a rare smile on her face. I'll get me a great familiar, she sighed, already confirming this to herself, be it a golem, or a griffin. My familiar would be great. Louise. The voice of her trusty teacher, Jean Colbert, call unto her. She quickly spanned her eyes outward and could see so many people turning their attention towards her. It nearly wiped the wind from her. She was nearly the last ones to go, and yet, the most anticipated. Her once brave front disintegrates into shambles, and she felt like crawling inside her protective shell, until her legs moved with a mind of their own. Prepare for trouble, it's Louise the Zero. One of the children mocked her. Not Louise the Zero. Come on, man. Let's get out of here before the school explodes. I bet her familiar is going to be a troll. A popular girl joked, and the rest followed suit. Their words hurt, but Louise did have tough skin. There were times when it all became too much, but now she had a bigger task at hand. She can't fail at this. She wouldn't know what to do. She doesn't care if it's a troll, but if it turns out that Louise the Zero couldn't summon a familiar, she'll be stripped from school and be sent home. She couldn't imagine what would lay in front of her, a noble who can't do magic. She'll be ridiculed for life. She made her way to Jean Colbert, and he supplied her with a confident, boosting smile. Good luck, you'll do fine, Louise. I believe in you. In more ways than the way it was intended. Those words only added more of a pressure. It was already obvious that the peer pressure around her was an all-time high. Her face had gone red when she took her first step, however, ironically, she nodded her head and stepped forward. Clear your mind, Louise the Zero. Disgrace, embarrassment, disgust, unworthy, trash, useless. Clear your mind. Unable, hopeless, loser, clear your mind. She closed her eyes, as the wind around her slowly gathered up. Clear your mind, Louise the Zero. Disgrace, embarrassment, disgust, unworthy, trash, useless. The rocks slowly elevate from the wind, mixing together. Students stand at awe at this newly like magic. No matter what she was doing, she kept telling herself the same thing over and over. Clear your mind. Unable, hopeless, loser. The words of hate slowly lessened in her mind, and her trusty wand glowed, shimmering in the eyes of her doubters. What is this? This can't be Louise the Zero. Clear your mind. The wind and rocks made a sharp curve around her body, centralizing towards one point only, which was the tip of the wand. Her heart and mind felt aligned, unlike anything in her life, as she even mutters words she barely understood. Prohodite. Evizai Vauteba. The energy gathered pours out with a massive flow. She could barely hold on. Everyone runs for their lives. It was only Louise, drained, but focused on her goal. Her eyes forever glued towards her mark. It took a few passing moments until the smoke finally clears up and a person appears. It didn't take long for the group of curious little tykes to gather around the creation of someone who couldn't create. Naruto stuck his head up from the ground and stared hazily at the people around him. There was a short silence, until, surprisingly enough, a tired Louise broke it. I summoned a commoner. Naruto replied, not understanding a single word. The crowd, who were on their feet since the first second, broke into laughter as Louise hid her embarrassed face from them. She grabbed Naruto by his collar and pulled him aside. Jean Colbert looked warily at the duo leaving the summoning grounds. Louise. He tried to call out to her, but Louise shook her head. I'm going to go and pack up. You have to seal a contract with your familiar first. I'll let you do it at your own time, but no later than tomorrow, okay? The idea of contracting with Naruto shatters the broken Louise, and she quickly turns to look at him. Her disappointed face is clear as she sighs, climbing up the steps to her room. I'm going to have to pack up and go home. Summoning a human? I'm really Louise the Zero. Where are you taking me? Naruto tried to ask, even though he understood that she couldn't understand him. He was also surprisingly calm, perhaps from the shock. Louise looked at him, but didn't care to give an answer. She dragged her familiar up the stairs and into the girls' dormitory. Dirty looks from the manager of the dorm were given, but Louise smoothly explained that he was her familiar, and with that, there was no longer any problems. Each step felt heavy for her, and came with a heartfelt sigh. I'm going to be wedded to some fat bard. That's what all the useless nobles do. Is that my fate? She asked herself. She finally reached the front of her door and opened it. Naruto stumbled in like some lost animal she picked up from the woods. All this design is really new with him. This whole world is new to him. The only similarity would be the chakra levels of the so-called magicians. Hey, Naruto tried to make conversation with Louise, who was preoccupied with being depressed. He wanted to communicate with her, but it was impossible if they can't even understand each other. His desperation to talk outweighed everything in his mind. As of why? He didn't know. It could be because she was in distress and wanted to help. Is it his inner hero taking over again? It is, he could feel it. Louise forces herself to sit up, hugging her gigantic pink plushie tightly and glares at the man in front of him. What do you want? Do you want to talk? Well, she thought about, Colbur-sensei did say I have to finish this task first. But that would require, she blushed. No, it's not embarrassing. You're just some slave for me after all, yes. This is perfectly normal. She pushes her adorable plushie aside and stood in front of Naruto. Now that she's so close to him, she shake her emotions aside, but the blush on her face could still be seen easily. Oh God. He's just a familiar, there's nothing I should be ashamed of. She swallowed hard after taking one more look before she presses her lips on the bewildered Naruto. Naruto, stunned by her sudden action, nearly fell to the floor, but Louise held him tightly. There was a small carving pasted over his forearm, like some sick tattoo written in unknown language. This feeling. It felt oddly right for Naruto, and sooner than later, he was the one in control. Louise slips a light moan through the thick of their kiss, but Naruto carried on, squeezing her shoulders, as if reassuring her that everything would be all right. The two finally break off, catching needed breaths, but not removing their eyes from each other. Louise felt melted and needed a solid minute to gather herself together. Happy now? You should be able to understand me. Naruto's eyes lit up. You don't say, he smiled. Why did you bring me here, Louise? It was something he needed to know. As of right now, you have a hero with you. A hero? Louise looked confused. You're no hero. You're my familiar. A typical commoner. Or, so you would think. He did some hand signs and showed two of himself. Louise looked shocked. He didn't have a wand, and for some reason, she felt a little tired. It must be because she did a lot of magic today. She closed up her magical ties to her body before observing Naruto, but at the same time, the clone Naruto magnificently conjured, disappeared as if not existing. What the? Naruto looked confusing before noticing a drain in his body. He fell to the floor harshly and didn't look like he was getting up. Louise looked a little worried. Are you okay? She asked, dragging his head to her lap. You were just arrived. You must be tired from that space-time dimension traveling. Nonsense. Naruto dismissed. It's my chakra, for some reason. It stopped. He thought carefully. His existence was starting to fade. His smooth skin and yellow hair was evaporating into nothing. At crucial moments like this, Naruto is brilliant. He comes up with a quick hypothesis. Your magic ties. Did you cut them? Louise looked confused. I don't see where you're going with this. Just put them back on, Naruto demanded, feeling a painful sting spreading throughout his body. Hurry. Louise closed her eyes and opened her magical ties once more, and the flow of magic transferred into Naruto. His transparent self started to regenerate and he felt normal again. The feeling of disappearing still lingered around the room. You're a familiar that completely relies on my magic? Naruto shook his head, drenched in sweat. No, but in my world. Your magic is what we call chakra, and since I don't belong here, the only thing keeping me here is your chakra. In other words, you're correct, but once I make a mark on this world, I will be able to generate my own chakra and live a soul being. You didn't have to point that out, Louise said, but Naruto glared at her, unlike his normal self. I just don't want you thinking I rely on you. Maybe for now, but I can stand on my own 2 feet soon enough. Hey, Louise tried to argue back, but the intensity from Naruto prevented her. It didn't take long for him to realize it, but he returned to normal soon enough. I'm sorry, he looked embarrassingly away from her. I didn't mean to freak out. I just became so independent these past few years that I don't know what it's like to rely on someone again. You're my familiar, Louise pointed out. If you have no one you can rely on, then count on your master. I would never abandon you. Sakura, Naruto cuts his words in half, almost saying the name of someone he longed adored. I mean, I never got your name. Louise Françoise Leblanc de la Vallière. Louise ignored the part when he said another girl's name, but she was still curious. This Sakura, is she a girl you like? Naruto looked at her. He felt as if another source of energy was draining. Like somewhere in his heart, a place he kept locked up since his 2 best friends got married. Liked? Naruto corrected her. She's no longer in my heart. That C can't be true. And what makes you so sure? I can see it all over your face. You're heads over heels for this girl. Naruto felt like crying, but he ran out of tears a long time ago. Sometimes, when you feel pain, you must bear with it. Or, Louise continued on with what he was saying, or, you can find someone else to love. Naruto looked at her carefully, not understanding her point. And what do you suppose, Louise Françoise Leblanc de la Vallière? Louise was amazed he was able to learn her full name after hearing it only once. I'm not sure, but as your master, I want you to be happy. So you do have a heart, Naruto laughed, and Louise blushed, looking away. It's not that. I'm just concerned over you, slave. Naruto chuckled. He knows when someone means what they say. He knows it all too well. As a young child, he learned true hatred. It wasn't the case when it came to her. She might have a tough front, but there's a soft, cuddly goodness inside her. It was starting to get dark as the two got ready for the night, so you weren't joking about being a hero, right? That's right. Naruto assured her, I'm 100% a hero if I have chakra. Then, you wouldn't mind using my chakra to display your strength at tomorrow's show and tell, right? His eyes opens and he finds himself within a dark, empty space. It's where nothing exists, well, except for a tiny dot that feels a million miles away. Naruto felt old, as if his body was being taken over, something extraterrestrial, manifesting every inch of his already misshapen soul. He didn't like this irritating feeling, like thousands of sharp, tiny needles piercing his brain. It drove him insane. In all suddenness, the young shinobi booked it. He didn't understand why, even if he did know the reason. It didn't make any sense to him. It must be clever instinct because luckily, without realizing it, his body began to fade. He didn't notice until his once strong body falls limp, and he finds himself on the floor. He felt something in his mouth, dirt. Whatever it was terribly disgusting and he desperately tried to claw his way to the light. He felt, if he doesn't make it, he would lose himself. The old Naruto, the natural-born hero, the unpredictable shinobi, the young trickster, the savior of Konoha, it would all be for a naught. The real him might disappear forever. I have to make it, I will make it, I've been through so much. There's no other choice but to make it. He heaved his heavy chest. His tired heart felt like it would drastically implode with all the physical strength he could muster. Everything I've done. It can't go like this. Not like this. I had so much I wanted to do. I have new people to help. I can be useful. Please. Just one more chance, he begged to the thin air. Obviously no satisfying answer was given. Every small inch he made closer to the blinding light, the sooner his body would sadly fade. His waist had already taken a turn to the worse and his ribs looked no better in this complex situation, but no matter what. He knew better than to stop and check his current condition. He knew it'll just be a waste of time. He continued to claw his way through, begging to whichever god does exists. The feeling of his fresh nails being slowly torn back from its flesh, sliding forward on who knows what and seeing a pool of blood underneath him, being dragged along too. The smell of blood, rusty, what a common and delightful smell. A smile appears from Naruto's lips. The birth of war, the only time he is truly useful. Naruto didn't realize it until he does and slaps his face, giving himself a break. No, I'm not like this. I'm never going to be like this. But despite his brave efforts to put up a cool front, a tiny part inside of him said to give up, but I always strive to be great. I know war is where I truly shine since people can depend on me. But even a monster wants peace, wants his friends back, wants the rightful title as Hokage. I want my mom and dad back. Then give up, the mysterious voice tells him, and Naruto didn't argue back. He rested his stained-colored hands on the floor and stared beside him. Maybe I should give up. In the side, he could see a reflection of himself slowly, but surely disappearing into the dark abyss of nothingness. But that terrifying fact of being non-existent didn't frighten Naruto one bit. Instead, oddly enough, it was his eyes. They had no light in them, and what made his spine shiver is, he didn't care. But then, in the reflection, an image of a red-haired man appears, standing before his dead-like body. Naruto felt something tick inside him as he realizes this familiar character, and Nagato. He wanted to sit up and greet this nostalgic visit, but he couldn't force himself up, no matter what he tried. It's already completely amazing throughout all the blood loss and pain. He still was conscious. Nagato. What are you doing here? He could only force a tired smile, but Nagato didn't respond. Instead, he said something confusingly off-topic. Those who don't understand true pain can never understand true peace. Naruto, you mustn't forget. Naruto felt an adrenaline rush running through his worn-out veins, pushing them to a maximum overload. He looked ahead, angry at himself for giving up. Thank you, Nagato. Even if my friend's forgotten me, even if my parents are truly dead, even if I can't hold the title for Hokage, I can't forget the true pain that I've went through. I can't forget about the enemies I conquered to gain true peace for everyone. I may be a machine made for war, but I'm never alone, and even if my will dies here, I can't allow the others who suffered, who felt true pain because of me, to have their will die here too. I shall pass on their will along with mine to someone else, just like you all passed on to me. Madara, Obito, Nagato, everyone, I'm sorry. He recharged himself with the fury of not only himself, but the others as well, and desperately crawled to the white light. He understood that no matter how hard he tries, he will never make it, especially now, but that doesn't stop him. His arms begin to fade, but that young man goes so far as to use his teeth to pull him through, just a little more. He demanded his disappearing body to go an extra mile. He forced himself to sacrifice his teeth, eyes, nose, brain, anything. He just had to move on. And when finally enjoying the fruits of his hard work, he notices he got a lot closer than he should have. The light is only one pitiful stride closer, but it was too late. The only remains he had left was his eyes. Everything else had long disappeared. But before he closes his eyes and accepts his fate, from the white hole, a hand appears and offers the torn-down shinobi assistance. Naruto stares at it reluctantly, questioning himself. All these years, when I have done things myself and moved mountains just with sheer will, would I finally accept aid? Born in a society where aiding a kyuubi was more than disgrace, even if one were just a former host. How can he finally rely on anything right now? He did get betrayed by everyone, but before he sinks into his depressed state. The words of Nagato still linger strong. It doesn't matter if someone hates you, but if they're willing to help you out, you should just accept. Even if one day that same person were to stab you in the back, you will always know that they did care enough to help you. Does that justify love? Does that justify friendship? Betrayal? No, it doesn't. But it sure as hell a beginning to an understanding? To be once loved, Naruto felt his body regenerate and with one fine go, reaches out to the hand as it pulled him through. His friends loved him. The people in Konoha even adored him at one point. His parents still love him, and even the kyuubi kept a soft spot for the troublesome shinobi. This all happened, and there's nothing in the present or the future could take that with him. Relish it. The hand pulls him towards the light as he embraces it, surrounding his body. Naruto, a girl in front of him, rubbing her eyes to keep herself awake, ironically tries to wake him up. You're supposed to get ready for the show. Louise, you're crashing on me. If anyone walks in, they might get the wrong idea. Wait a second, did you get any sleep last night? She struggled to speak. I was concerned that my slave would disappear. She quickly corrected herself, but it didn't help the fact that she is tired. To add into this whole mess, whenever Louise would doze off, Naruto would completely blank out too. He didn't understand the specifics, but if he had to guess, he is forced to shut down whenever Louise goes unconscious. This might be troubling for the future, since his direct energy source could be attacked and he would go down as well. I guess I really am a machine. Naruto chuckled. What? Louise looked at him a little bit puzzled. Nothing, Naruto sighed. He snaps his hand in front of her to catch her unreliable attention. Louise, snap out of it. We're going to sleep again and skip the whole show and tell nonsense. Louise's old, once upon a time expression of being tired switches to a more serious, back to business attitude. I finally get an awesome familiar, and when the one time I could show him off without being judged, he decides to call the whole thing off. She brandishes a leather whip and beckons Naruto to come over. Perhaps you need a little discipline. Naruto waved his hands in the air. We all know how that turned out, right? Peesh, I only missed because I wanted to. Look, Naruto said, avoiding this fight altogether, that's not even what I mean. It's just, do you think you can handle it? Considering what I've seen so far from you, you haven't missed a single day of rest. It's a lot harder if you're used to that type of luxury. What? Louise looked even more pissed. I'm a wizard and you're a familiar. Do you honestly think your life is a lot difficult? Yes. Naruto answered truthfully, but added a sly smile to try and reduce the tenseness from this situation. Naruto, you might be able to live off without me later, but that's later. As of right now, you need me to live, and it's only right to serve me when I'm in need. Aren't you a hero like you've told me? Then, she suddenly looked unsure if she should say the rest she meant to say, but she did it anyways. And the other reason I couldn't sleep is because, well, I was thinking how cool it would be to have my own hero. Naruto observed her and could clearly see she was in some dream state, so besides her worrying for his existence, she actually thinks he's pretty cool. I'm not used to this. Naruto chuckled, really amused. You must have the wrong guy. But I don't. I know you're a hero, not because you've told me, but if I have any talent at all, I would like to think it's having a good judge of character. You? A good judge of character? Naruto laughed, but he found it pleasing, even if it's this one time. It feels good to finally be appreciated, even if it's from a girl he barely knows. Alright then, let's go, show off. Naruto grinned widely before disappearing out in the hallways. Louise followed behind him, yelling at the top of her lungs, it's not showing off, you slave, it's called show and tell. In a wide and open field, a talented magician and her tremendous-looking familiar just finished their demonstration of what a textbook duo should look like. Jean Colbert, the announcer, congratulates the beautiful red-headed girl with her victory. Very well done, Kirch. Top-notch work. The crowd that gathered from both school staff and important officials that spent their visit at the school made it quite the audience. Kirch ravishes in the crowd's cheers and picks up the roses tossed by several shy male teenagers who found her to be an untouchable sex idol. Jean Colbert, however, took the moment to warn the crowd about the next contestant. If the crowd wasn't filled with important officials, he would have thought twice to embarrass Louise, but he couldn't risk having the school thrown to the dumps because of her carelessness. Now for a warning, our next contestants haven't arrived, so I would make this quick. They're extremely dangerous, and though I would highly disagree any of you will die, there is a chance someone would get hurt. Ah, Louise the Zero again? A student blatantly showed his disagreement of having her up there. He even done a disfavor to everyone else by leaving, and the ones that did stay to enjoy the rush, said things like, well, we all lived a good life. Not only were teens the only one to show discomfort towards this, even the young children were frightened. Mommy, I'm scared, one little kid would say. Naruto and Louise heard the whole thing, as they quickly sneaked around the crowd and to the back entrance. Louise looked angered, as if she had heard someone close to her had died and she wanted revenge, while Naruto merely took it all in and kept it in a safe box where he distributes it to the poor. This line is just a joke, don't take it seriously. Just they wait, Louise growled, they don't even know what's coming to them. I bet, Naruto smiled, just lend me your strength, Louise, and all your doubters would disappear. Anyways, besides that, how are you feeling? She didn't look well. It could be that she was always pale, but the dark rings under her eyes proved otherwise. Naruto went along with it though, he couldn't let her down when she's in this determined state. Slave. Naruto quickly seizes her hand and kisses it. Yes, milady. Louise's anger quickly masks itself with confusion by Naruto's actions. She steps back, holding her hand. What do you think you're doing? Well, Naruto was unsure himself, but knew why. You always insists to call me as your inferior, so maybe if I made you my queen, you'll understand. You can't? That's way too embarrassing. Okay, how about we both drop it and call each other by our names then, deal? Louise looked hesitant at first but nodded her head in agreement. The two then waited for the signal to get on stage and took their role as master and familiar. There was still a good bit of crowd left when they arrived. It looked like almost everyone would risk their lives to see something like this, and Louise's father is a well-known man in the politics, so his competitors would love to have a wound to show everyone back and discredit her father's reputation. The curtains rolled backwards as Naruto and Louise took the stage, looking deeply into each other's eyes. So, how about a good luck kiss? Louise didn't let it get to her, but she looked shaken. Naruto, please, be serious. Naruto looked at her pleading eyes and his smile disappeared. This is really important for you, isn't it? Yes, then, let's make fireworks. Naruto grinned. His body puffs into thin smoke and reappearing are two shadow clones. Rasen Shuriken. He screamed, as the clones almost instantly create a star-shaped orb, half the size of Naruto, and he tosses it into the air. The Rasengan violently mixes with the air and twirls madly between the wind until finally exploding. Whoa! The crowd look in shock, and as all eye returned back to Naruto, 10 more took its place, each holding a kunai knife Naruto created before he went to sleep last night. In a quick push, the clones jump away except one and throw the kunais in blinding speed. Naruto catches 5 of them and uses the same kunais to block the lethal attack. The crowd were in shock, looking at the exploding Rasengan that created colors of different kind. Naruto was familiar with the making of fireworks, so he mixed together his attack to make it look like the colors were from the original Rasen Shuriken. When all eyes returned this interesting shinobi, already 10 of him had taken place. During the night, he had created kunai knives for today as well, and each clone bared its sharp ally close to themselves, except for one which stood in the middle of it all. The clones soon jumped away from the original and threw their kunais in blinding speed, to show off his unnatural physical ability. Naruto had caught only one and blocked the rest. The sound of clangs made it look like it was a thundering storm nearby, but it wasn't over. Naruto threw his kunai to one of the clones, and as it hits the unprepared clone, he appears right behind, catching the thrown kunai and throwing it to another, repeating the process until all clones disappeared with the only smoke remaining. It was hard to keep up, but that itself made it so much more spectacular. When Naruto finished the last clone off, He turned his head to look over to Louise, who should be overwhelmed by his greatness, but instead, he finds an exhausted young girl, breathing heavily on the floor. He looked around for help and in a distance could see Jean Colbert rushing in the side towards the infirmary tower. The crowd had got up on their feet, genuinely worried for Louise. It was just what he expected. The stares Louise receives aren't from hate, it might be from jealousy or someone was trying to be funny, which doesn't make anything better, but at the very least, it was born with hate. Naruto pushed her hair to the side gently, staring into her eyes. Fight. He chuckled. Louise stared at him, in a drowsy state. Naruto, you really are a hero. Don't get too serious with me, Louise. You only just seen a little of my moves. He felt like boasting, even if it's cocky of him. Just wait till you see my best move. He laughs, but Louise looked serious. Naruto, be my hero for a little longer. I know it's selfish of me to deny you home passage, but be my hero for a little longer. Together, we can make great things, so please, I'm tired of being weak, and I know looking for help. Naruto cut her off. He knew what she was going to say because, like it or not, the two hold a lot of things in common. Louise, looking for help doesn't make you weak. I'll help you no matter what. Louise smiled. It was like finding someone who finally understood her. Naruto, will you be my slave? I thought I told you to stop calling my that. Naruto growled. I know, but if it makes me your queen, then it looks like I'll be calling you slave from now on. The magicians slowly gather around Naruto and Louise, only to whisk Louise away from him. The two tried to hold hands forever, but the magicians forcefully break them apart. Please Naruto, you didn't give me an answer. Will you be my slave, for a little while longer? The two slowly became more far and far apart, but it didn't stop Naruto from screaming back, yes milady. I would be your slave in shining armor until I'm sure you can be yourself. I won't leave you, Louise. The color of reddish-yellow mixed together and if hot enough, provides a color of water, as if mocking whomever stares at it. It could exterminate a neighborhood, a community of trees, or even a mansion. Fire. The antiques, the wooden bed frame, the cabinet, the doors, everything besides the foundation is covered in the magnificent color of fire. The thousands of knowledge hidden away in shelves, under the staircase, in the attic, the basement. Burned. Never to be read again. Priceless paintings, silver dishes, nostalgic figurines from amazing adventures. Ashes. It all felt unreal. To have everything that her father and mother gathered tossed into the pits of hell. What made it worse, all she could do is sit and hide. The white closet door in front of her and the cool feeling of the doorknob in her hand. Oh, how she dreaded to walk outside it. To escape the safe haven of her secret place, her parents would never guess here. You see, young Ashley is a little girl who had very special parents. Her parents had the ability to cause terrifying yet beautiful magic. One of the best, actually, at doing it. But being the best always brings trouble. You can't live a healthy life if you ever wished to be the best. You can't be a talented mage if you don't sought blood-chilling enemies. People who can turn your spine upside down. Some who can steal your breath away merely from a glance. Her mother would always tell Ashley to avoid people like these. The words would echo in her head every now and then. The troubling nostalgia of remembering it. Ashley, darling, someday there would come a time that, there was a painful look on her mother's face, but she carried on strongly. When bad things happen to mommy and daddy and you would think that it's unfair. Ashley would pull her mother's hand and beg her to play with her. Mom, come on, let's play. You and daddy are going to be fine. There's no one out there that can beat you too. There is, her mother hesitantly replied. Mommy and daddy created a lot of enemies, sweetheart. And it wasn't always, we weren't always in the right. You see, when a person's hatred is born from revenge, they can be a really formidable enemy. They will do anything to grow up and be beautiful, be strong, be smart, and it'll just be to get revenge. If something were to happen to me or daddy, you have to promise me you won't be like that. Mommy, stop talking silly, and nothing's going to happen to you. Ashley. Her mother's angered, tired voice bellows out and surprises young Ashley. She quickly covered her ears and crouched to the floor. It took long minutes for her mother to realize she was at fault. She quickly hugged her child, embracing her with sad tears sliding down her soft, worn-out eyes. Ashley. Promise me? Promise mommy you won't be like them. They may be smart, strong, or even beautiful, but if you look closely, they're nothing but broken souls. Scarred from their head to their toe. You're different. You're different from mommy and daddy. We're strong, but you'll grow up stronger. Don't waste your talents on revenge. Ashley's eyes widened, as if she came up with a clever conclusion. How about I stay young forever? Then you wouldn't have to leave me and you'll protect me forever. Then you wouldn't leave me. I'll have mommy and daddy with me forever. Wouldn't that help mommy? Her mother stared into the innocent eyes of her child and knew it was no use. She could never get her ready for the moment in the foreseeable future, but she still had one last wild card under her sleeve. She pulled out a small bottle filled with her own magic and forcefully made Ashley drink it. The nasty look on Ashley's face, filled with confusion and disgust, is vivid, and when her mother pulled the capsule away she sighed with relief. If you're ever in trouble, call out Archer. He'll come and save you. She smiled. Archer? Ashley wiped her lips, trying to get the disgusting liquid from her tongue. Who's Archer? Her mother smiled, remembering things from back then. He's an old friend of mine. And with that, Ashley didn't question no more. She's going to have to stay for a night here in the infirmary. When she's ready, I'll call you, the kind nurse told Naruto. Naruto nodded and walked out the door. Having Louise not by his side, even if at times she can be annoying, felt empty. He sighed and crossed his hands behind his head, looking forward at the girls' dorm. A young girl with red hair sat on a bench looking at him. It's the girl from Louise's class, Naruto muttered under his breath. The girl didn't keep her eyes off him. Instead, she had a smile when she realized it was him. Her body moved from the bench in a seductive manner, but it was put to shame by the way she walked to him. Naruto for some reason stopped. He didn't know why, but the girl had an alluring look to her. Hello there, big boy, she hisses, touching his neck with her soft, warm hands. Her breasts were busty, far too big for a school student. He had only seen the works of this once. You must be Kirch, Naruto said to her and quickly made distance. It's not that he didn't find her attractive, it's the fact that he found her attractive that he would have to be careful. Kirch nodded, as if her name was common knowledge. And without knowing it, Naruto found her on his neck in a split second, resting her chest against his back. He swore she was just in front of him. How was she able to move that quickly? 2 years of having boys at my feet, she answered Naruto's thought. Is that even possible? Naruto yelped, trying to avoid his instincts. It's much better if you learn to give in. Naruto shook her off, not violently since he was enjoying it. What do you want, Kirch? If you have experience with boys then you don't need me. Nonsense. I'm done with boys. She advanced, like a python ready to strike. I want to play with men now. Naruto shuddered. This girl was much better than he though. He tried to go offensively. You better be careful for what you wish for. She snickered, give me your best shot, and with that, lunged on him, for the sake of not falling into temptation. Naruto did a quick jutsu and his body disappeared into two. He grabbed his clone and pushed him to her. Here, play with this. He yelled, running away. The clone looked back. You coward, he said to the running Naruto. It took Naruto a minute for his clone to pop. He didn't know what Kirch did to make the clone pop, but he left the scene miles ahead. It's a good thing too. He didn't want to take Louise's chakra for long. She might need it to rest up and heal. But it still bothered him that the clone popped so quickly. A long time ago it was weak and would pop from the weakest attacks, but Naruto grew stronger, so the clone shouldn't have been disposed of so quickly. It could be because the girl is a sex fiend. Had she really used the clone to its utmost limits in 1 minute? It kind of excited him. He stopped running and got to a walking pace again. It's bad because he can't return to the dorms until he's sure she's no longer there. He decided to walk around a bit. A little sightseeing never hurt anybody. Or so he thought. Naruto thought he heard something behind him. The sound of wings flapping, cutting through the wind in sharp motions. He looked up and his eyes widened. The image of a dark beast roaming the skies frightens him near to death, and he takes shield under a tree. What the hell is that thing? Naruto asked no one. He didn't notice he walked right out of school grounds and into the forest until this thing showed up. The dragon swooped down, edging so close to his body that Naruto sprang from the trees and into the night. The dragon followed, keeping up with Naruto, and the two sped at top speed. Naruto still didn't want to use any of his jutsus. He was afraid it might affect Louise in some way. He ran, glaring at this ferocious beast. The monster merely stared back. The fear Naruto once possessed was destroyed as pride came along to take its place. The only person he had ever lost to in a head-to-head physical challenge was Rock Lee. He didn't count Sasuke because that was when they were too young. Naruto easily beats Sasuke at physical ability. Sasuke's strong suit is jutsus. Naruto thought if he loses to this dragon now, it would be a dishonor to Rock Lee. He can't allow himself to be easily beaten. Naruto felt his sweat disappear in the wind. He ran so fast that his body could barely handle it. The wind pushed too hard against him, but it was little to Naruto's willpower. Whenever the dragon would get a one-up on him, Naruto would force himself to move faster. It didn't look like the dragon was treating this as a race. It felt more like it was trying to warn him. Oh, Naruto slipped out. His legs no longer were on the ground. He looked below him to find sharp rocks below him. It looked like he was so focused on his race that he had forgotten to look ahead. Even then, he refused to use Louise's chakra. If not for her own good but his as well. He looked around and a blinding speed burst behind him. The dragon that had once been Naruto's enemy moves in unimaginable speed. It didn't take long for Naruto's feet to touch something and he found himself on a harness on the dragon's back. A girl with blue hair looks at him. Her glasses slightly falling from her nose. "You must be Naruto, Louise's familiar," she said to him, nonchalantly. Her face had no emotions. Naruto had given her such a hard time yet she doesn't even mention it. The girl pulled out a book in front of her and looked at Naruto. "You made me lose my page." "Your page?" Naruto looked at the book. "I'm sorry?" The girl looked no more into the matter and slid the book back into its case. She grabbed the harness and without warning, shoots straight into the air. Luckily enough, Naruto had already grabbed onto the girl before the thing lifted itself into the sky. It looked beautiful. Thousands of stars glittering in the sky. It worked well with the great, bright moon. The wind also felt good. Naruto had never felt this kind of exhilaration before. What's your name?" Naruto asked as the dragon finally came to a normal speed. He could also see the school from here. Now that he could see it from this view, it was pretty impressive. The size was of a village, slightly bigger than Konoha. The girl didn't answer until they finally reached the school. Faculty members and curious passer-by students stood awaiting him. The faculty members of course were angry but amazed at the spectacle Naruto displayed. "Never in my days did I see a human keep up with a dragon. You are truly amazing," Jean Colbert complimented. Even the weird old man gave an impressed look. "Tabitha." Naruto heard a tiny voice mutter. He looked beside him and found out the girl was still here. I didn't feel your presence at all. How did you do that?" "My name is Tabitha." And with that, the girl quickly jumped onto the back of her dragon and soared into the skies. Jean Colbert led Naruto safely inside the dorms without having Kirch get involved. The look in her eyes as they passed still brought shivers down his spine. It looks like she's far from satisfied by a mere clone. When they finally reached the doors, Naruto thanked him and entered. The room really did feel empty without its owner. He always looked at the bed, ready to see her sleeping there peacefully. "What did I get myself into?" Naruto smiled, thinking that not a long time ago he was a bitter old security guard. Sleeping blissfully all by himself was none other but the whiskered ninja himself, stuck inside a world that wasn't his with a girl that he never met besides here. However, that girl isn't here and since news that her hospital stay was extended, Naruto had all the room to himself, including her bed which was restricted from him before. "Ah, Louise, of course I'll have another helping, hee." He drooled, blushing slightly at the imaginary food inside his head. The once beautiful room is nothing of its former self. It's a shadow, an empty shell, a disgusting disfigurement of the beauty it once held. The young man turns and twists on the bed, creating ripples and pushing aside empty plastic chocolate bars he received from Kirch. There are books lying at the side, written with forbidden language he found at the library while hanging with Tabitha. But Naruto forgets often. Little does he know, today is something he shouldn't forget. The golden door knob twists and the door swings open. The pink-haired young lady walks through with a face filled with disappointment. She struggled to carry the belongings and medication she got from the nurse, along with magical books she uses to help study, to aid her to strength where she can prove herself useful. "Hey now, it's not nice to forget that today's the day I leave the infirmary." The room was slightly dark, tempting the girl to turn on the light. Naruto. "You there?" She flipped the switch, revealing the horrors to her innocent eyes. The scream brings little life to Naruto's eyes. He sits up groggily and wipes away the sleep, hopefully to get a better grasp of things. "Louise." He stared at her idly and a sly grin appeared on his face. "Welcome home." The poor girl ran to her mirror and noticed her belongings destroyed. She touched the dripping nail polish that stained her personal made gear to keep her hair the way it is. Her eyes twitching, her lips quivering, her whole body shaking with anger. "Naruto," yet her voice was calm. She flips open the top of her blouse, revealing a lethal old friend Naruto hasn't met in a while. Naruto eyed the beast carefully. "That whip really ought to go. You know it doesn't work with me, right?" He smirked, picking something out his ear. "Don't worry about the mess. You'll get used to it. Oh really? Louise removes the whip from its guard and lashes at Naruto. Naruto appropriately dodges it. Aha! He laughs, but Louise moves her hand skillfully with swift decisiveness and the whip unnaturally follow, aiming for Naruto's most sensitive spot and striking successfully and critically. The sleepiness up and decks from Naruto's face, unable to handle the impact. He limps to floor like a worm and groans weakly. Louise straightens her whip. I've taken classes on the art of whipping and I will not be ignored in my own room. Do you understand? Naruto laughed, grinning mercilessly. Oh yay, he recovered from the blow but was still injured. What would you do if I cloned myself? He victoriously points at her. Louise closes her eyes, unimpressed, and brings out a whip with more than several strings of wire. Then I will deal with you, appropriately. Bring it! Naruto yelled, creating multiple clones that showered all over the room. In the end, Naruto was on the floor mainly because his clones didn't do anything but annoy Louise without the intention of actually hurting her. But Louise took the challenge to the heart and destroyed all that was in her path, including Naruto, who is back on the floor, praying that he'll be able to make children in the future. I give. I. Come on Louise, I cleaned the room for you and all that. He complained, dragging a cup along the bars of a cage he was put in. Louise quickly went out when Naruto was forced into cleaning and brought a small animal cage with her. Naruto went inside voluntarily, aware he's wrong but regardless, hated this treatment. Louise, Naruto dragged her name along his tongue. Please, let me out. He begged. He doesn't beg regularly but he knew he was at fault. Louise pouted, sitting on a stool while looking sadly at her poor makeup. Ruined, you know how much this cost. What can I do to make it up to you? Naruto asked. Louise shot him a dirty look until an idea popped into her head. I guess I'll have to extend your familiar time a little longer. Naruto's stunned. But, no buts. Louise said firmly, her arms covering her non-existent chest and her eyes closed. I need my makeup and you destroyed it, along with some of my clothes, and my bed smells like it's someone else's. She looked at the bed, a little tempted but quickly restricted herself again. But since you destroyed all the things I needed, then you leave me no choice but to extend your time. That's slavery, woman, Naruto argued. Revolution. I would not stand for this tyranny. He rattled his empty mug against the steel bars, prisoner-like. Louise angrily shot a nasty glare at him. It's your fault, you destroyed everything I need, that's why I'm extending on something I need, which is, her face turned a little red. Struggling to say, which is what? Say your piece, woman, or leave me alone. Stop being so dramatic, Louise ordered. She then got angry at herself for being hesitant. Is it because she feels different about Naruto somehow? Are there any attractive qualities about him? She tried to think of one until blushing madly. Be because I need you, she shouted out unexpectedly. Naruto grinned. That's good because I wasn't planning on leaving right now anyways. Why is he smiling? Is there a reason for him? This world isn't his. He's not this world's hero, but he's trying to be, and that should be enough, right? Is that why he's smiling? Or maybe it's because of what's in front of him. It's nice, he admits. Louise stares at him at his eyes. It's nice to feel needed again. He fights back tears. It's been so long since he felt like this, but... Yes? Louise asked, looking genuinely curious. Naruto was now the one struggling to speak, but he couldn't bring the words out from his lips, but he tried. He couldn't. The words were so loud in his mind. Would you leave me when I'm not useful anymore too? The door to his cage opens and Louise is holding her hand out towards him. Tell me, Naruto, she smiles. Naruto shakes his head. No, it's fine. He grabs her hand and she leads him outside. Louise looked a little uncomfortable but finally said, I'm sorry for treating you like an animal. I won't do it again. Naruto smiled. Really? That's great to hear. He then looked at her room. Oh, I almost forgot to change the bed sheets. I'll get right to it. Louise stops him. No, your smell is reassuring. Naruto looked a little shocked. Louise, he whispers her name tenderly. Naruto. The voice wasn't Louise. It was from a red-haired, busty, tan classmate of Louise, Kirch. She runs to the two of, leaning more towards Naruto with her breast pressing against his chest. I had fun last night, she said out loud. Louise looked stunned. What did you do last night? Nothing for little girls to know. That's for sure. She smiled, her eyes staring at Louise's chest. Louise covered her chest and glared at Naruto. You animal, what did you do when I was gone? I had fun too, Naruto. Tabitha spoke, her voice quiet as always. Naruto nearly jumped when she spoke. Tabitha. How do you keep reappearing from nowhere? Kirch smiled. You were there too, Tabitha? I guess it was too dark for me to see you. She turned her attention to Naruto. Hey, Naruto, how about you toss another big meat at me later on? Big meat, Naruto thought about it. She must mean the clone, but that could be taken in the wrong context and he knew why she did it. You monster. Louise yelled. She took out her whip and dragged Naruto back to her room. You pervert, you monster, you disgusting, vile, beast. Taking advantage of two girls when you got one. She stopped. Ah. She screamed angrily. Naruto whimpered, oh man, what'd I get myself into? The hot sun and its rays touched the surface of Naruto's skin as he mushes his hand with wet clothes inside a bucket handmade in silver. He sighed heavily, gazes up to Louise's window where she sat tapping her thin pencil lightly against her desk. The extravagant carving on her desk displayed itself for everyone to see. But Louise expressed trouble, stress. She felt unwell after reading a certain letter that makes her nervous periodically. She attempts to stand, her hand sliding down her thin frame, her pink locks limping to the side, both cautious and carefully. She found the mail this morning and dropped it when she found out who it was from. She swallows hard, sweat dripping from the side of her temple. You can do this, Louise. They won't ask you back, they believe you. She takes a deep breath. Her thin fingers wrapped around the white paper, creating wrinkles, no realization that she's pressing harshly and like fire. She hisses, dropping it back down. Damn it. She curses. The door to her room swings open and Naruto walks in with a basket filled with an assortment of clothes. His eyes widen with curiosity, becoming suspicious. Whoa, what's the matter with you? Louise sighed, realizing she couldn't hide it anymore. Her face blushed pink and her lips quivered. My parents. It's been a whole year since I've heard from them and they suddenly send me a letter. That should be good, right? Naruto folds one of the panties nicely at the side. Louise sits next to him, looking at blank air for answers. No, it's not. Firstly, I was sent to a hospital and my parents have connections to find out if I was sent to the hospital. Secondly, I got this letter when I came out and knowing my parents, they don't waste time, so this isn't a coincidence. There's a good chance they're going to try and keep me home this time. It takes a second for Naruto to register what he heard. Leave school. You're going to leave school, but what about me? What happens to me? I get to follow you, right? I know I appeared in your world, but I can still disappear forever, Louise. Naruto freaks out. I might die. There's still so much I want to do. I want to fly. I want to become a hero again. I want a family, kids. Louise, you can't let me die, and you're going to take me, right? Louise turns her eyes at him, troubled. Let's just say, when I brought in a wild squirrel for a pet when I was small. They cooked it and fed it to the sharks. Naruto's ghost seeps from his lips, disappearing to the sky. Louise tugs against the ghost's tail, grunting. Oh no you don't. You're not some dirty squirrel, Naruto. You're my familiar. You're my hero and I'm going to need your help more than anyone's. Naruto sighed, climbing down from heaven and returning to his body. He closed his eyes, uncomfortable, humming to himself as he tries to grind the old gears again. Naruto's smart but his mind isn't efficient. He only becomes smart when things get down and dirty, but just going over a plan and he's a simpleton. What are you going to have me do? Naruto asked, aging by the second. Louise couldn't look him in the eyes. She treats him like a slave and she knows she lets her temper get to her most of the time, but she genuinely thinks Naruto is a hero. She respects his strengths and only wishes to aid his weaknesses. Having a hero forced into a situation that he's considered less is something she would never have him do unless it was absolutely necessary or he's talking to other girls. She hates it when he talks to other girls. The time when they did the show and tell, that was their moment and he promised to be her hero. He has no business with other girls. Louise suddenly ended up glaring at Naruto, gritting her teeth. It made her sad that he'll break his promise like that, which brought tears to her eyes and being said makes her angry, ferocious even. You dirty perverted slave. Louise shot at him randomly. Naruto's eyes widened, bewildered. They weren't able to come to a conclusion that day. The sun was setting and Louise decided to keep the letter at bay until they have clear heads. Well, mostly her, but anyways, they haven't found a solution. Naruto was climbing the stairs, stretching his arms wide with a tired look on his face. It's been a while since he's been worked by Louise, and surprisingly enough, her chores actually help him keep in shape, so to an extent he liked it. He opened the door groggily, barely keeping his stance. He really overworked his body today, and even though Louise's chores were at his limit, he surpassed it by helping the other staff around and tried to be as useful as he can. Naruto trained hard in the shinobi world and is probably the strongest one here physically even without his abilities, but working all day, all the time can still put some stress on a guy. Louise was sitting on her mirror desk, with an upsetting expression. She just fixed her whole makeup set and also folded both his and her clothes because of how messy he was. You should try and be cleaner. Otherwise I might have to work you at night too just to make sure keep habit of being clean. Naruto mumbles something unintelligible, dragging his body to the soft bed he slept in since Louise's hospital days. Louise looked shocked, watching his body go limp on her fresh sheets, dirtying them. Oh no you don't. She grabbed his legs, tugging Naruto's body but to no avail. She cleaned the bed personally because she's aware Naruto helps the staff when he's done with his usual chores. So extra chores that sprung from nowhere, she does it herself, and the man just came back covered in sweat and took the liberty of dumping his body on her bed. She took out her whip, squeezing it with force. Naruto, she yelled and extended her hand back to whip Naruto, but Naruto quickly counters and grabs her hand. He was irritated and accustomed to living by himself. He had no manners for anyone else within his own home, and he wasn't thinking clearly because he's so tired. I think you're underestimating my own strength, Louise. He looks her dead in her eyes. Louise never saw this side of him before. She looked flustered, overwhelmed as she tries to break free from his hold. He wasn't hurting her, but he was making an example that he had the ability to do so. Louise looked to her one free arm and searched for anything that could help her. You won't hurt me, right? Louise asked, trying to give the best innocent expression she had. Naruto was tired to the bone, almost appeared drunk and replied, I might. Louise swallowed hard but bit her tongue and looked forward. Then try it. She glared, matching his intensity. You're stronger, you're faster, and sometimes you can be smarter than me, but I'll be damned if you have more courage than I do. Louise was pushed around her whole life. When she was little, she had two older sisters who always received praise while she was incapable of magic. Being a noble and incapable of magic, she might as well been left in the gutter. The whole world, the noble life, everything was against her, and it was eating her alive, making her feel sad, lonely, and even suicidal sometimes. But then she found out something no one can take, something that can only be lost if she gives it. Her courage, her will, her ideals, and her respect for herself. It made her stubborn, idiotic even at times, but it made her stronger, faster, and smarter than no beast, not even Naruto, can threaten her livelihood. Naruto snapped from his tired, unconscious mode and looked surprised at himself. Louise, he looked directly in her eyes and saw the fire of Konoha running rampant. It even frightened him as to let go and apologize for his actions, but Louise took matters in her own hands before he could fix it. She grabbed the wand from her bedside table and yelled words Naruto couldn't understand. The spell failed but created a huge explosion, blasting all her hard work to the side, and her bed was even more of a mess. Naruto found himself on the bed, darkened by ash, and Louise lying on top of him, equally dazed. He looked all over the room, charred and broken. There was glass all over the floor and her pink walls colored black. Naruto then heard a whimper from Louise and felt warm tears pressing against her chest. Louise appeared to be crying, and Naruto didn't know why. Was it because of how he acted? He embraced Louise, looking confused. I'm sorry, Louise. I didn't mean it. I wasn't thinking clearly, and this kind of zone happens time and time because of what happened to me before. It's not that, Louise said, still hiding her face. Naruto, I need someone. She finally said, I don't care if you hate me, or if you want to leave me, but I need someone. I need you. I believe in you. There's no one else I believe in. Trust, or, she didn't finish the last word of that sentence, my family. They hated me. I hated them. The only one I could really trust was my oldest sister, and I know this is cruel, messed up of me, but I can't keep her company because she's sick. My mom said it would only be bad for her health. They don't understand me, and to be fair, I don't understand them. I don't think there's any way to fix that, but you don't know how lonely it felt when I lost contact with my oldest sister. When I went to academy, alone, and everyone looked at me like some kind of fool. You're the only one who didn't do that. You smiled, you were happy being with me even though I treated you badly all the time. And when I saw you look at me with those eyes, the same eyes of my family, the same eyes as everyone in this school, you don't know how it felt. Naruto stopped her. He looks deeply into her eyes and swallows hard. I do know how it feels. I've been there, and you don't know how sorry I am to make you feel that way. I guess this time world travel thing hasn't registered to me well, and my personality switches when I'm completely fatigued, but believe me when I say this, Louise. I know how you feel. I will never let you feel that again. Ever. Louise looked unsure. Are you sure? Do you promise? Naruto smiled, grinning from ear to ear. Believe it. Louise felt happy. She felt really happy. Even though her room was in shambles or her clothes and bed sheets are ruined, and even though she has to address the letter from her parents which would lead her to address her parents themselves. She felt overjoyed that Naruto is going to be by her side through everything, so overjoyed that Naruto felt her warm, soft lips press against his. Naruto felt her warm lips touch his, the embracing feeling that wiped away his loneliness. He's always been alone, partially because it was his fault, but there's some cases which it wasn't. Sakura, for example, he had no hard feelings for her when she chose Sasuke. It's only natural that she did, and he expected nothing of it. Hinata was his fault. The girl could only wait so long before someone else stole her heart. He isn't unattractive. He's actually well built with admirable features. There were other girls in the village who took interest in him, being the past hero and all that really made him a love interest, but he wasn't satisfied to an extent that they were only interested in him because of who he was. That's why he breaks apart from Louise. Louise looked shocked, saddened, but nodded her head with a resigned smile. She struggled to say. Naruto couldn't say anything. He just stood there and watched her. Louise continued on. I'm sorry, it won't happen again. She then walked away from him and went to the door. I need time to clear my head, at least replace the sheets. Louise, Naruto finally spoke, but she was out the door. I don't want to hurt you. Louise walked outside the door and into the corridor. The nicely painted pictures on the wall of past great people surrounded her. She wondered if Naruto's face will be there. I'm sure of it, she whispers to herself. Louise, on the other hand, isn't so great. There's not a doubt in her mind that she won't share the same statures of other great magicians despite coming from a noble family. She went outside because the pictures and decorations were making her sick. The cool, night breeze gently grazes her skin, creating a slight, but pleasant chill. Her eyes stared at the moon, its white light revealing itself in her eyes. She wasn't mad at Naruto for rejecting her, but she felt an empty spot in heart because she did. She believes it's her fault for rushing it so early, but she didn't regret it. That's how she felt for him, and she acted out how she felt, something she rarely does at all. The candle lanterns hanging above as light posts to cover the otherwise dark sidewalk provided aid as Louise sat on a bench that placed in the middle of it all. The night sky, decorated with stars, gently caresses her with its light and soothes her complicated soul. Naruto is a hero, her heart wavered, and I'm a zero. That's how it should be. There were tears adjusting within her eyes. Am I not worthy of being Naruto's master? Of course I'm not. Of course you are. A random female voice appeared from nowhere. Louise looked around, nearly jumping from her seat. Hello? She calls out and the voice answers. Hello, Louise. Where are you? Louise asked, and the voice responds yet again. I am everywhere. I am the trees, the water, the stars. I am darkness, and I am the candle that lights the darkness. I am despair and hope, courage and will. But the real question is, who are you? Louise hesitates to answer. The voice sounds oddly familiar, but she can't place it because it sounds like something out of this world. It's like an echo from the future, coming to her. For some reason though, she answered, I am Louise. The unknown voice laughs, softly and slyly. Are you just Louise? Am I not talking to Louise Françoise Leblanc de la Valliere? Are you not the daughter of a prestigious Magus family? Louise looked trouble, and the constant teaching of her family to be proud of her lineage even though she's not kicks in. Why yes, I am that Louise. HMPH. The voice snickers. Then why are you sad? You should be more confident in yourself. Is there a reason you shouldn't be? Louise's head goes limp, wounded but at the same time thankful for her consideration. Tons of reasons I shouldn't be. It's because of me that Naruto. She pauses and decides to explain herself, and she really needed someone to talk to anyways. Naruto is my familiar. He was summoned to this world for some reason, and he's meant to be the hero of this world. I just know it. You really think so? The voice asked, because it is I who brought him here and it is I who can take him away. Are you tired of Naruto, Louise? Because if you are, it is simple for me to make him disappear? Impossible. Louise stated, loudly and defensively. I'm the one who summoned him here. He belongs to me. I won't let him disappear. But you are only dragging him down. Your chakra pool is terrible for a skill set of his. You can barely keep him alive, if you truly care about him. Louise does care about him, more so than Naruto himself believes. The kiss was basically her being overcome by her emotions. She wanted to kiss him since that talent show, since she returned back to her room. Her feelings for him are strong, no, but her words counter what she feels. I'm selfish. I can't be trusted with Naruto, but I'll get stronger. I can't have him leave me. I'll get stronger and he can use me whenever he wants. Even if he wants to. The voice said. Louise looked at the earth with more intensity because of what she said. That's right. What if he wants to go? Should she stop him? He wants to return back to his world, or is he content with this one? If she spends time with him, create bonds, overcome obstacles, and at the end he goes, will she break? Then, she was ready to resign. Then, I'll have to let him g. Her voice was cut off by another voice, one she is familiar with and can immediately put a face on it. I'm not going anywhere. Naruto stood there proudly at the side of Louise. Louise looked stunned. How long was he there? Naruto smiled at her but immediately switched back to his serious expression. As long as I'm needed here. I'm not leaving. My existence in this world is to become its hero, and Louise's is here to help me. I don't care if she's weak. I don't care if I can't use my full power and abilities. I am a hero, and it's about time I give myself credit for it. I don't need my full skill set to be a hero, because being powerful was never what a hero is to begin with. Being a hero means standing up when you're hurt. Being a hero means helping people even though you're weak. Being a hero means never giving up. And I'll be damned if I give up on this world because I can't use my full power. If I did that, then I'm no hero. There was a silence. Louise looked up to him, astonished, stunned, and even the mysterious voice was taken aback. It was until the mysterious voice breaks the silence that Louise snaps out of it. I see. Then time will tell if you can back those words up. Uzumaki Naruto. The voice disappears. Naruto looks coldly at the black air until returning back to normal. He looked at Louise and grinned. I've come to say that I've replaced the sheets and your bed is ready, master. Louise's eyes glowed. Why you called me master? Don't get used to it. Naruto warned but smiled anyways. You must be tired. He looked at the giant clock in the middle of the school. Climb on my back. I'll bring you home. He bent over and Louise was reluctant to get a piggyback ride. I don't need it. I can walk on my own. She tried but the incident still shook her up. Naruto offered his back again and Louise grunted. It's not because I like riding your back but because I'm weak right now. You got that? Hi, Naruto responded. They started walking back to the dorm when Louise lightly punches Naruto on his back. Why did you reject me, Baka? Naruto shrugged. It's not like I don't find you attractive or anything, but I guess it's because you're something I want to protect and being with me in a relationship might hurt you. There was a hint of shock in Louise's eyes as she said, Really? Really, Naruto told her. I hate to overuse this pathetic line, but it really isn't you, it's me. Maybe if we're in another world, then maybe. Louise rolled her eyes. Considering you're not from this world and we shouldn't have met at all, I think right now is the best case scenario. The stars wrapped its light around them as they continued to playfully argue back and forth until reaching the house. In the middle of the darkness of what was a rather extravagant home was a woman dressed in magnificent clothing and wore glasses that she pushed up in the bridge of her nose. Her eyes darted back and forth as she climbed the staircase and knocked on a door with an odd rhythm. The door opens and a man dressed in a suit of armor walks out and examines the lady. He nods his head after identifying her. The lady looks discreetly inside and discovers a small light with grim faces all around. Is it true? She asked. The faces didn't answer, but looked elsewhere, distraught. Is Queen Henrietta really missing? One of the man, dressed in sleek clothing which made it easier for him to move sighs, closing his eyes with a stressful expression. That seems to be case. How? The woman demanded, her glasses sliding down which she habitually pushes back up. You're supposed to be watching. And I have. The man responds confidently but it quickly disappears with what he says next. But, we were quickly defeated. I've never met a soul strong as this one. Luckily, I've managed to produce a video using one of my spells and I've caught the man's appearance. The end. Thanks for watching. Also remember to subscribe and like this video. See you in the next video.